Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight Number 4 with service to Miami, Florida, aka the 305. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time and secure your podcasting device, and make sure to tell your loved one that you're sure they will win the LPGA. Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Kurbis, joined by Max Singer and Richard Inman. I hope you guys have your Miami hats on because we are going to the 305. How are y'all doing today?
Incredible. I got to watch Ballers last night, and I've never woken up with more energy and more of a need to down a bunch of Percocet.
I am so good. I am wearing a knockoff Dan Marino jersey in my home right now. I've made it so humid in here to replicate the Miami climate. And yeah, let's get this show on the road, boys.
Yeah, for those who are listening, I would like to say that Max and I are representing the Ballers. Max with his Dan Marino jersey on, myself with a Zach Thomas jersey on, and Rich is playing the role of his real life job, a manager, a agent, all in one.
I am reprising my role of Jewish agent with a heart of gold from our Entourage
Jeff,
episode.
with the Zach Thomas jersey, the rare case of a person wearing an athlete's jersey that they are taller than in real life.
Wow, I've never had that happen.
Well, welcome again to the podcast. Today we are going to be talking about Ballers. But Max, for those who may be joining us for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about what this show is about?
Absolutely, Jeff. If this is your first time flying with the TV Pilot's License, welcome aboard. We're a podcast that analyzes and reviews, loosely, the pilot episodes of famous and infamous TV shows throughout the years. We talk about what works, what doesn't work, what we like, if these shows can be made today, and who we recommend them for. So we hope you enjoy today's episode.
Excellent. And Rich, although this podcast is really about watching a pilot and enjoying it for the first time, this is the first episode that we've all watched the show before.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is a show that is the birth of the TV Pilot's License in a form that we didn't know about at the time. But can you tell the folks
spiritual
at home
predecessor to the podcast
a little bit about what was the spiritual predecessor to the TV Pilot's License?
Yeah, so let me take you back to a little time and place called my living room, and May of 2020. When we were all locked down for the pandemic and all having like a fairly like weekly group call, and the group call started waning in terms of interest, and we had to come up with an idea of how to like keep people coming on to maintain their mental health and sanity, and we just decided what's the most mentally healthy show that we can possibly think of. I think that would probably be Ballers on HBO. So we created essentially a book club for the show where we would watch a bit of every season and discuss it once a week. It was perfect.
If you watch the show with subtitles, it counts as a book club.
But instead of a book every month or so, we forced each other to watch an entire season of Ballers on a weekly basis.
Ball club.
Ball club, TV club, whatever you want to call it. Although, the pandemic as a whole was a downer at that time. It was something
great.
That...
I'm so glad we're going to comment on this, on what the pandemic did to us as a society while we came out of it healthy and hosting a podcast.
This is a health podcast now. Though, what I will say is the pandemic TV club that we did have was really one of the bright spots of that time, of those first couple of weeks of the pandemic. And I'm glad that it has evolved into something that I'm really enjoying doing with you gentlemen, even though we're only 4 episodes in.
Thank you, Jeff.
Love you both.
I have to say, looking back at that time, like a little over 2 years ago, Ballers is one of those shows that when you are experiencing an existential crisis and you're just needing human contact so bad, like Ballers is absolute lithium for that. It is.
Yeah, I will say, we watched it with the intent of knowing that it was a bad show, and I don't know. We all got into it in our different ways. We were all excited to come talk about it every week.
We were watching an entire season a week for a period of time there.
Those episodes are only like 24 minutes long. It was not that heavy of a lift, I will say.
It was a very heavy mental lift.
Speaking of heavy lifts, should we get into this?
Pop.
Let's talk a little bit about it. For those who have never seen Ballers before, and you want to watch it before you listen to the podcast, you can find it on HBO Max. But let me give you a little bit of a synopsis.
For the next 24 hours, you can find it on HBO Max.
Luckily, it's not an animated show, so I think it has a little bit more time.
But boy, are those characters animated.
It's now owned by the Discovery Channel, so it's technically a documentary.
Well, let's talk about it. The synopsis of the show: looking at the lives of former and current football players, the show follows former superstar Spencer Strasmore, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as he gets his life on track in retirement while mentoring other current and former players through the daily grind of the business of football. That sounds like a really interesting show, and sounds like a lot went into it. But Max, can you tell us a little bit about how this show was actually made?
All right, Jeff, Rich, listeners, I want to tell you something that you probably should know. That Slumdog Millionaire Bollywood flow.
Oh, baby. This has to be the only show that starts off with a producer call out as the first line of the entire show.
When I first heard this show, I thought it was haters in the building, and then I found out that it's Kane is in the building.
No, sir.
Oh, my God.
No, it's forever going to be haters in the building to me. Anywho,
Also, wait a minute. You thought haters in the building was a positive thing to start off a song with?
Yeah, like you're pumped up, like your haters are in the building and you're ready to show them wrong. Like you're ready to prove something to them. Yeah, there's one thing about Drake, like he thinks that he could make it in every professional sports league.
I mean, if you're...
He keeps trying to get on the court at the Raptors games. Outside
of the TV pilots, I highly recommend looking up the highlights of Drake participating in Kentucky's Midnight Madness. It is one of my favorite videos to watch, and I recommend it for a sad day if you're not into Ballers.
Big fan of Drake just being the quintessential fair weather fan for absolutely everything. No, I've never seen anyone pick and choose his allegiances more publicly than Drake.
Drake, we love you, but Max, let's
come on the pod. Friend of the pod, Drake, Aubrey Graham. Come on,
Drake,
come on the pod.
We want to talk about Degrassi, Drake. Come on the pod.
All right. Well, in the meantime, folks, Ballers premiered on June 21st, 2015. Shockingly, this show feels at least 10 years older than that.
Yeah, this is a flip phone show for sure.
But it was created by a gentleman named Steven Levinson, who, if you listen to us, you may remember as being one of the co-creators and executive producers of Entourage. He's Mark Wahlberg's manager and production partner. He also wrote this pilot. He had written 3 episodes of Entourage, but now he's going forth and writing his own show. He's been super involved with HBO in the time since Entourage. He's also an executive producer on both Boardwalk Empire and How to Make It in America. So he's really involved with the network. He's kind of their boy right now. Other EPs on this show are going to include Mark Wahlberg, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Peter Berg. And a lot of these people are just super interconnected. Peter Berg and The Rock go back to 2003 when he directed him in The Rundown, one of his first movies. Berg also directs a movie called Lone Survivor that stars Mark Wahlberg that Levinson produced. So there's a lot of like interconnectivity here. And in 2013, The Rock starts pitching an idea for a show to HBO to star himself. This show later becomes Ballers. It gets picked up direct to series order in 2014. So there's no shopping around. This was The Rock going to HBO and saying, I'm looking for a project. They've got a team in place. And then this premieres in 2015. Berg is going to pull triple duty on this. He's going to be an executive producer. He's a director. He's also an actor. He plays what's credited on IMDb as just Dolphins coach. If you watch any subsequent episodes, you learn the name is Coach Berg. And if you thought that was the least inspired bit of character naming by Levinson, you are incorrect, because both Spencer Strasmore and Joe Cretell are the names of producers and executives at HBO and Leverage, which is his production company.
Are you kidding me? Oh, yep. Man, just a Simpsons writing room level of character naming here.
Yeah, so literally Stephen Levinson is looking around the room and just naming characters off of people he sees. This is also the second collaboration between Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Rob Corddry. You may remember them from the 2013 hit Pain and Gain, also starring Mark Wahlberg and produced by Stephen Levinson. So we got one big happy family heading down to the 305.
I know we're hopping on the Peter Berg shit train already, but he also has another connection to football that we're going to cover in a later episode. He was the director of Friday Night Lights, the TV show.
He wasn't
also the movie version from
also
a few years
the movie.
prior.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, he wanted to win, so he put Booby Miles in.
I will say Peter Berg also has quite the relationship with Mark Wahlberg. You mentioned Lone Survivor, but he also did Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day, and one of my favorite worst movies ever, Spencer Confidential, which was on Netflix. And if you one of those
that
other
sounds
things,
like a fake Nickelodian show.
Well, let me tell you, Ballers could also be called Spencer Confidential, because that guy has some secrets.
Is that Spencer Confidential also Spencer Strasmore? Because he can only think of 3 names.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's dive into the actual pilot, right? We could talk all we want about the ins and outs of Hollywood that made this show even a possibility, but we're here to talk about a pilot. So let's start off this pilot just with the opening credits, which are one of the most amazing opening credits I've ever seen. We talked a little bit about Lil Wayne and Drake entering with that hip-hop song. We could debate all day if we think that a hip-hop song is more appropriate than just like a classic score. But were you gentlemen thrown off by the amount of B-roll footage that was just used as the opening for this show rather than showing the Miami or people playing football?
A lot of it is like footage of The Rock too. Like it's a lot of like childhood photos and like footage of him playing like for the U in the early 90s. Like from the jump, this is just a vehicle for Dwayne Johnson to prove that he could like actually be an actor. This is like absolutely his opus from the moment the credits start.
Yeah, I think there is some appreciation I have watching it this time through of how big of a star The Rock was in 2015 too. Not that he isn't now. He is like still the #1 box office draw in the world, but to go from being in literally any action movie he could possibly want and making it like an instant $1 billion worldwide, to go and make his own show about like playing football, which I don't think he ever made it in the pros, did he? I think
he played Canadian.
He played Canadian for a little while.
Okay, and that was like his forte. That was like his foray into like wrestling too. It was like that was like the natural next step for him.
Yeah, like he steps away from the Canadian Football League and gets into wrestling.
Yeah, especially with his dad being a very famous wrestler prior.
Rocky Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. Well, learning something new every day. You're welcome, listeners.
But one of the things that really threw me about this entry into the show was, oh my goodness. You would think just based off of the opening credits, there's no money in this show whatsoever. We quickly learn every single dollar that HBO had that they weren't putting into Game of Thrones at the time was being thrown into Ballers, because we instantly are taken into this beautiful mansion. The Rock is nude with his girlfriend, and we come to learn the family-friendly Rock, not in this show.
The Rock fucks.
Hold on. Jeff, I know you spent some time in South Florida. Miami Beach, in the dead of summer, like, before
It's the off
football
season.
training camp, it's really hot. I think that woman just tried to sleep a little bit comfortable. I think she's sleeping in the nude out of comfort and necessity. This is not a sexual situation.
And we also get a glimpse into what will be an extremely one-sided amount of nudity in that you don't see anything from The Rock, but you're definitely going to see a lot of tits and ass in the show. And personally, I'm pretty upset that you don't get to see the rock bottom.
Oh my God. I will say, I think that this opening scene, even though it's very short, we get a small glimpse into the idea of The Rock formerly played football. He does have nightmares about his playing days. And he also is taking what we can assume at the beginning is pain pills, probably for some old football injuries.
Yeah, he is chomping on those things like they're
Yeah,
pens.
yeah. It's never a good sign when someone chews pills. That's like there's no reason to chew them, and the fact that he's going at him like Flintstones vitamins is truly upsetting.
Shout out to the Foley artist at HBO who had to make The Rock chomping on Percocet.
Until this point, I had never seen The Rock as like a flawed character, right? And we start to see, ooh, something might not be up. That's right with Spencer Strassmore. In a very quick scene transition, we're now speeding down the streets of Miami with a player, I think his name was Lottie, and Lottie was going down with his girlfriend. She's asking him everything, if she loves him, how much she loves him, and then comes to find out he did not leave his wife. Now, here's my big question for you to start off this is, do you think it's the best idea to start beating the crap out of someone if you're going 90 miles per hour down the streets of Miami?
I mean, it's the same person who would date a clearly married with children football player and think it's going to be okay and hope that she leaves his wife for him. Or he leaves
I assume
his
that
wife.
that's just how everybody in South Florida drives at all times.
I mean, I've been there. That's kind of, you're pretty right.
I apologize to my parents for our insurance. I got in a few accidents in my time in South Florida.
How many Bentleys did you wreck, Jeff?
Not enough Bentleys. That's the only brand. And probably one of the first great jokes of the show, as soon as the car crashes, we're brought to The Rock, Spencer Strassmore, giving this eulogy.
Yeah, Rodney is dead now. I want to establish Rodney died.
He's gone. He went 4 and out.
We don't know anything about the girlfriend whatsoever, but Rodney for sure is dead. And The Rock starts talking about how much he loved his wife and his family and all of that. What were your thoughts during that funeral scene as a whole?
The Rock is giving this touching, albeit clearly BS eulogy to try and make the man's wife and family feel better, while a woman in the front row is attempting to flash him in a sexual advance. Everyone loves The Rock, which is what The Rock wants you to believe. It's not so much what happens in his eulogy, though, which is it's a fine speech all in all. It's what happens afterwards, when we're introduced to a burgeoning actor by the name of John David Washington, a.k.a. Ricky Jarrett, who calls this woman, I believe the phrasing is, that woman in the front row is a straight-up freak. The first lines of dialogue of a now burgeoning A-lister, and his asking of Spencer Strassmore if he should go grab some funeral hose.
That line made me pause the TV so I could just cackle to it, because I never thought I'd come out of a funeral and be like, oh, wow, this actor has got some comedic touch to him.
Like he was with the same level of casualness as picking up a half dozen donuts. I think I'm gonna go grab some funeral hose is an amazing start to this. And I will say, like, too, we got so many inklings into what these characters are going to be for the rest of the episode, for the rest of the show in general. We have our first nudity 10 seconds into the show. We have our first drug abuse 11 seconds into the show. We have our first marital infidelity 20 seconds in. We have the first funeral like a minute in. It is truly, I don't know. We're getting into very dark territory.
It packs the punches. It definitely is very different than a Friday Night Lights, which Peter Berg is familiar with, where it's like, oh, there's so much hope, and like even when things are down, there's hope. This is sex, drugs, and football, and that's sort of what Ballers is all about. But we do learn after the funeral that they're going to host a party after the funeral at one of the players' favorite spots in Miami. And everyone's planning on going. They're going to all go together. But The Rock has to go to his actual day job. But not before he has a phone call with one of the other characters on the show, that being Vernon Littlefield.
Vernon Littlefield, the new recruit that The Rock is talking to in this show, basically represents the young stupidity in the league of letting family members take advantage of him, blowing all this money, having a $12 million contract paid in advance before right out of high school, and then still needing $300,000 to keep himself afloat. I mean, truly, like, I think one of the biggest, like, tips of the iceberg of how bad his situation is going to get right off the bat. You're like, I need money. I'm calling someone who barely started at this agency. How can you, really taking advantage of the situation, I think.
Well, and Spencer knows all of these players. Like, when he's at the funeral, it's assumed that a lot of these guys are vets. He played with Rod. But, like, Vernon's, like, a young dude, so it's really interesting to see how he's put himself in, like, old player circles, new player circles. Vernon, I'm reminded of, there's this video of former NFL head coach Herm Edwards talking at, like, a rookie symposium, and he's telling them how to spend their money, and he's like, oh, you want a car? Great. Buy one. You want a house? Buy one. He's like, you want a wife? You want a girlfriend? He's like, you get one. And it's like, Vernon Vernon needed that rookie symposium.
Truly.
He needed someone to go in there and just tell him, like, you need to stop letting everyone mooch on you, encroach on you. And luckily, we have a really great figure like Spencer Strathmore who's going to guide him out of his problems, right?
Well, yeah, we're definitely led to believe that
Yeah,
Spencer
real
is going
tough
to do
love.
so. But we do learn a little bit more about what Spencer is doing in life after football. And it turns out he's working at a finance office, a money management office. And we come to meet one of the other stars of the show, Joe Cretell, played by Rob Corddry.
My fucking dog, Rob Corddry from The Daily Show. Rob Corddry represents truly the absolute worst in management, and one of the reasons why I think it is very similar to the argument that's made in the movie Jerry Maguire of just like, here's the industry, everyone's making a ton of money, everyone only has knowledge of the sport that they're playing because they got picked out in high school, and they've spent their entire life only worrying about football, hockey, basketball, etc. And then Rob Corddry with the amazing line of, I do my best work at funerals. It's when people think, what could I have done differently? Which is
it's the same thing, too. He follows it up by asking The Rock if he saw that hot snatch at the funeral.
Oh, my God.
If other shows set up their characters with these, like, really nice, sleek one-liners or, like, good exposition, Ballers gives you no insight to these people. Like, when you meet Ricky Jarrett, you know nothing about him other than funeral hose. When you meet Joe Cretell, you know nothing other than, like, hot snatch and doing work at funerals. It's such bad setup of every character. There's no description. But, what did we expect from Stephen Levinson?
Yeah, Joe Cretell is very clearly like Ari Gold with less business sense.
Well, Rich, I'm glad you brought up Ari Gold. Because I do have the question of if Stephen Levinson, when writing the show, thought to himself, we need an Ari Gold type character. And yes, we do have Joe Cretell, but we do come to learn about the other Ari Gold character, and that's Jason Antoletti. We'll learn a little bit more about him, too. But it really does bring into question the idea of, when Stephen Levinson was writing this, he was like, okay, cool. Entourage went great. We did so well. We had a movie, all that fun stuff.
Boy,
Let's
did they.
make it again, but with The Rock and sad.
Yeah, it's like if he just copy pasted Ari Gold dialogue for the entire pilot of this and just like crossed out Ari and wrote the next character's name.
Man, that is, I will say, like, for as much as they wanted to paint Jason as the Ari Gold type, I have him down here. He and Spencer seem to be the only ones. I mean, in addition to Charles Green's wife Julie, they seem to be the only ones who are like kind of pure in heart, despite the fact that they're like, you know, depicted fucking and doing drugs and stuff like that. It is still very much like I am here. They appeal to someone's like desire to help, desire to like be that supporting person for them, and I personally really love Jason's character. Like watching this show again.
Yeah, I definitely think that we'll definitely learn a little bit more about Jason. We're introduced.
But I could use a night out at the club first, boys.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say before the night out at the club, Rich, you did mention Charles Green. And Charles is definitely a juxtaposition to Spencer Strassmore and Ricky Jarrett, in that he just retired. He wasn't the most like flashy star player, but his wife is literally like, you need a job. And we can tell. And I love the character of all the characters in the show. Julie Green was the one where I was like refreshed. I was like, cool. Like, yeah. I'm glad that someone's not like letting her husband fall down the trap of just being retired and sitting and watching Sports Center all day.
No, baby, we're in the offensive line to car salesman pipeline, and Julie, no one sees that clearer than Julie.
I do want to speak to that Chevy dealership scene where he walks in and is like, "Oh, I'm the newest Chevy dealer." I loved when he went up to that guy who was selling cars and he was like, "Oh yeah, I played football," and the guy was like, "I've never heard of you," which you know, I just shout out to my O-line guys. They
I could be a Hall of Fame offensive guard, and I wouldn't know who I was talking to.
Yeah, and we obviously the show has no shortage of a Hall of Famers in this one too. I'm so happy we get to see Larry Sonka and Don Shula in this. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like as clear as it gets that, you know, at the same time that we meet Charles Green and we get the story of him like having to go to this car dealership, try to use like some crumb of clout to get this job, it's still, and that like almost a scene after Spencer talks about his dream of his retirement ceremony where he was like, this is what I wanted to happen. I wanted the speech, I wanted the fans to be there, but the position that he was playing is not a star position. It's not quarterback, it's not running back, it's not wide receiver. If you're going to be on defense, you're basically going to be forgotten about. And that is something I feel like a lot of these people have to cope with, unfortunately. I mean, you see Charles get turned down at the club by saying, "Oh, I used to play for the Bucks," which sounds like he played there last year.
Well, let's get to the club, Rich, because the club scene was definitely...
Oh, finally. Podcast over. Bye, guys.
Let's get to the club. Because the club scene, I think, was one of the things that originally when HBO was being pitched this show by The Rock, they were like, oh, this is it. This is what we're going to do. Because instantly we roll up to the club. Not only are we greeted by Deshaun Jackson, but we're also greeted by, still in the league, Antonio Brown, fresh off of one of his great seasons. And chaos just unfolds from there.
I believe you're talking about the purchase that was mentioned immediately afterwards, correct? The how much to pay for a certain large circus animal?
I believe what we're discussing is $250,000 a good price for an elephant?
I don't think it's a bad one, right?
Well, it brings... Yeah,
just the shipping alone.
I was going to say, the question that comes to mind immediately after hearing Steven Jackson, you know, still in the league, I believe, at this point, has just spent $250,000 on an elephant. And then instantly I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. And then I was like, oh, that's pretty sad, because we've been talking about all these poor purchase ideas, and they're going in a circle, basically talking about how they're spending money on all these ridiculous things. But I couldn't get out of my head, what's the most money you'd spend on an exotic animal, and what animal would that be?
Oh, great question. Personally, I wouldn't want something that was going to take up my entire backyard, but I did go on animalshq.com. Shout out, friend of the pod, animalshq.com. And please sponsor us because we want an elephant. It looks like it's around $12,000 to $60,000 to procure an elephant. However, the lodging would take close to $10 million to build, and feeding would cost $70,000. So it's basically like buying a Toyota Camry, and then gas is like $7,000 a gallon.
You want an elephant? Buy one.
Incredible advice for rookies everywhere. Buy one elephant only. Oh, you know what? What if it needs a friend? A mouse?
Well, the one good thing about purchasing an elephant is that it at least does not, it's a land mammal, so it does not go against the Rock's mantra when Spencer Strassmore tells all of the players outside the club, if it drives, flies, floats, or fucks, lease it. So you can buy an elephant under the Rock's own logic here.
Yeah, and if you buy just one elephant, it won't fuck, so you'll stay within those rules.
Unless you're doing some weird things to that elephant, then you definitely have to lease that elephant.
However, under Spencer Strassmore's logic, you do need to lease Dumbo. The one exception to the elephant rule.
That's definitely falls within the HBO current logic.
Yeah,
of
wait,
just leasing
Max,
Dumbo.
I rented Dumbo. Does that count?
Yes, it does. You lease Dumbo. That's fine.
Perfect. To answer your question, Jeff, I'm going monkey, and I'm going monkey in a way that will be not so much in a cage, but just some cool animal that I can hang out and eat bananas with. That sounds rad.
Max, what about you? What animal do you want roaming the streets of LA with you?
I think if I have the backyard set up for it, a dolphin or two would be really fun. I don't just say that because I'm wearing a Dan Marino jersey. If I'm thinking bigger and more land mammal, I could see myself being pretty content with a moose.
I mean, a moose sounds pretty appropriate for
moose?
me here in Minnesota.
Hold on. But stop the podcast. You want a moose? One of the largest, most damaging, one of the most damaging, and one of the angriest animals that you could possibly have. It's basically an invasive species wherever it goes.
I could fix him.
Jesus Christ.
Max is the Spencer Strassmore for mooses. Please take his card. As we move on from this conversation of poor financial decisions, we see Charles Green is approached by this young woman at the club. She asks him what he does, what position he plays, and as soon as he says he's a retired O-line, no more conversation. She then goes to Ricky Jarrett. They say hello, and we are then brought to our true first full nudity of the series and the first full nudity of the TV Pilots License podcast history. So congratulations, boys.
There was no nudity in the Entourage pilot at all?
There was no nudity in the Entourage pilot.
Wow, very tame for Steven Levinson. Good for you, buddy.
Congratulations to The Rock, Steven Levinson, all of the producers, Danny Garcia. You know, we're killing it here. One of my favorite cameos, we'll call it a cameo, it was actually a role in this show, was I saw a familiar face from my childhood. And it was Ryan Merriman, Luck of the Irish himself, playing Frat Boy as the role, who then proceeds to get in a racist altercation, we'll call it, at the club.
It's pretty racist. It's pretty racist.
Again, I want to point out that Frat Boy is the official crediting of this character because Steven Levinson knows how to name his characters.
My dog. Now, for those of us that weren't inundated with Disney Channel movies, can you give us a little example of what Luck of the Irish was, Jeff, and what he means to your childhood?
See, if you were a child of the 90s, maybe of the late 80s, there was a beautiful thing called the Disney Channel original movie. Boy, were these great. They were low-budget films that had great stories that captivated the minds of young, innocent children. And there was one where...
Yeah, tell me that great story.
Yeah, there was one that, you know, I think everyone considers a hit, where a young boy who's on his basketball team, considers himself fairly lucky, finds out that he is indeed a leprechaun by birth, And
just a really tall one.
Chaos and hijinks pursue. His grandfather legitimately is a small leprechaun. Like, we're talking about Lucky Charms size right now.
Wow.
And it is really, if you have Disney Plus, you can also sponsor us. Please pull up Luck of the Irish. Watch it. You can watch it on St. Patrick's Day. You can watch it today. But you'll see Ryan Merriman.
It's Teen Wolf with Irish people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wait. Should we take a break to apologize to the Irish community ahead of time? Just like get really ahead of this one.
Well, you know what? They get their revenge because Ryan Merriman is now playing frat boy in Ballers, and who is very racist. So,
that's why you never fight with the Irish.
Exactly. They always win. But what then proceeds after Ryan Merriman's character, frat boy, starts to provoke Ricky Jarrett and basically say that he's next. He's going to be the next one who dies. Ricky Jarrett starts beating the crap out of him in the club. Cell phones are out, and we then are introduced to Ricky's agent, Jason, and I would say
king shit.
This was one of the most upsetting ways I've ever been introduced to a character.
And Max is a little bit on this particular scene. I think he saw a familiar face in there.
I am so excited about this appearance more than Antonio Brown, more than Ryan Merriman. So we meet Jason Antolani, which when I was typing up my notes for the podcast, my
that's a type of pasta, right?
It wanted to make agnoloni so bad it wanted to change autocorrect to a type of pasta.
We get it. You like LA Restaurant Week.
It is Jason Antolani, and there is a woman he's having sex with. She is on top of him in a reverse cowgirl position, shouting repeatedly.
The play-by-play is great. It's really getting me in the mood for football.
Shouting, who's going to win the LPGA? Who's going to win the LPGA? And this actress is a woman by the name of Christine Bentley. And you may not know that name, because you may now know her as Christine Quinn of Selling Sunset fame, one of the biggest reality TV stars in the world right now.
Let it just be a lesson to all the young actors out there who are really trying to make it. Get naked once and then really try to milk it on reality. That seems to be that seems to be like the really solid plan for all actors out there. I'm really proud of her for doing this.
Yeah, it definitely was a scene. When Stephen Levinson was writing this scene, he was cracking up, giving elbows to the boys in the boardroom, saying, "Oh yeah, he's not gonna leave the room. He's still gonna be technically probably having sex with her while he's figuring out the Ricky Jarrett thing and trying to walk the rock through fixing this situation as a whole." As we're seeing The Rock fix a lot more things than dealing with finances, at least in the pilot sense. What did you guys think about that?
Well, it's really easy to call this sports entourage because of Stephen Levinson's involvement and just that the opulence and how sleek it is. But The Rock is covering up people's affairs to their families. He's willing to lend large sums of money in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to people in need. He's working to mend PR situations, do illegal, unlicensed agent activities. And I'm starting to think this guy is a fixer. I'm starting to think that he works for a financial management firm the same way that Michael Clayton in the film Michael Clayton worked at a law firm. I think that Ballers is just sports Michael Clayton.
Well, I would also say it's just HBO Ray Donovan, which is going on at the same time.
These are two things I haven't watched. I'm so excited for you guys to talk about this.
You've never seen Michael Clayton?
No, never seen it. Never seen it. So I know MLB star Royce Clayton. Are they related?
Yes.
Okay. I did also want to put in a little sidebar. The person who actually won the LPGA in 2015 is New Zealand-born professional golfer Lydia Ko. At the age of, I want to say 18, she won it. So, sorry, Christine Quinn.
Poor Christine Quinn. let's
She's
talk
fine.
let's talk a little bit about the fallout from this fight, because what ends up happening, Ricky is pretty aware, based off of conversations with Spencer and conversations with Jason, that he's probably going to get cut from the team. He's with the Green Bay Packers at this point in time. He gives a very half-hearted apology to one of the weirdest scenes, because the Green Bay Packers don't have an owner. They have stockholders, but it very much appears that they have an owner.
And those stockholding fans will tell you that they are owners of the Green Bay Packers every chance they get.
But
shout out to the state of Wisconsin, friends of the pod.
all of Wisconsin, friends of the pod. We soon come to learn that Ricky is no longer on the team. He is a free agent. Rather than even being cut, it sounds like he's a highly valuable player. Whomever is the GM of the Green Bay Packers is doing a terrible job.
Yeah, could have at least tried to get us a few late round draft picks for him.
That's a 7th round conditional pick every single time. We have to throw in this football talk because this is the kickoff of the 2022 season. From there, we then come to find out that Jason is really trying to pull the strings. The Miami Dolphins might be interested. And we come to meet Larry Seifert, who is the GM of the Dolphins. And it was actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the show.
Dude, my dog, Dule Hill. Shout out, friend of the pod, Dule Hill. I love him so much. We're going to cover every single pilot that he's ever been in. But he's also one of those people that I want to say has a pretty strong run in the show. You wouldn't expect him from how short this particular, his how many lines he has in the show, how kind of throwaway his character is. He's super important to the to how the crew gels around a very positive and very less judgmental route of the sports business. And I mean, I'll just watch anything he's in. I love him so much.
I just love him going into the Chevy dealership to see Charles Green and just speaking in riddles and rhymes around this pickup truck. Larry Seifert comes in talking like a wizard to Charles Green, trying to get information out of about Ricky Jarrett to see if he's a good fit for the Dolphins. And if Charles doesn't answer correctly, a curse will be put on his family. Apparently,
I will give you this Tahoe if you answer these riddles 3.
Yeah, and Charles doesn't even sell him the car, and he tries to plead with his employers. I'm telling you, he wouldn't have bought the car and still getting shit, even as Seifert is leaving the office. But we do come to find out, Charles puts in a good word. Ricky does have a chance.
The NFL famously a referrals business.
Yeah, very much so. But Ricky then is late to his meeting, and we then get to meet Peter Berg doing the acting role of a lifetime as Dolphins coach.
Well, this is not the acting role of a lifetime. This man was on 100+ episodes of Chicago Hope back in his acting days.
Wow.
That was the role of a lifetime for Peter Berg. Before we really dive into the conversation here, is making someone untie your fishing boat from the dock and then just driving away one of the funniest potential getaway methods?
Hey, can you get that?
He just absolutely pranked Ricky Jarrett's ass.
There's also no fuck you moment really in getting away on a boat, because you're going, no matter how far you're going at a speed of 5 miles an hour away from who you're getting away from.
Yeah, that's a really crowded harbor. There's a lot of rules and regulations. You can't speed off.
Larry Sanka is a hard issue. You can't just be running out.
I did love untied the boat, and then to add a little bit more to the pain, Don Shula just looking at you and saying you're an asshole, and then driving
bad
off
life
at
choices,
5
son.
miles per hour.
Just a quick note for our listeners who may not be familiar with the undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins. Don Shula was the coach of that team. Larry Zonka is a Hall of Fame NFL player and one of that team's stars. So just getting some real NFL Miami Dolphins legacy in for cameo roles here.
It was also historically one of the easiest schedules that any football team has ever faced. Anyways, Just gonna throw that bomb in there in case anyone from Miami's listening.
But we do end up seeing that Ricky stays. He waits at the dock. He knows this is probably his last chance. And Peter Berg says, hey, you're on the team. There's one last loose end to tie up, though. And that is The Rock goes and visits Vern to give him the $300,000 that he requests. Really with the understanding of he needs to start signing his friends, people he knows, to be his clients. And we just see Vern's house. Everyone's there. And he does have a great line where he's like, he doesn't know who everyone at the house is.
Truly troubling.
It was really one of those ideas of just like, you hear the horror stories of like, keep your close-knit circle around you when you make it big. And I just sat there in that scene, and like there was a general theme with this show, and it was just sadness. Like, I got very sad watching this podcast, or watching this pilot.
There's so many evils of the industry in this show, just like the predatory business, the injuries, the long-lasting injuries, the greed, dealing with family, and like, you know, family that you like, the pressures of having to lift up your entire family, your community, just because you got a shot. And then definitely preying on ignorance. I think there's a lot of like, it's definitely tied to the business of it, but the preying on the ignorance of these young guys who get all this money and their dreams come true, and they get to live in Miami, they get a sweet ass car, but they should have just bought one. If you're gonna have family members there, just have one.
It's really easy to have that influence in your ear, and from what I gather, Spencer gets into this industry after retirement because he was screwed over by a financial planner who they say stole $800,000 from him. So it's like he's a financial planner because he hates financial planners. So he has to be the good one to make sure that other people don't get screwed over by the bad ones.
Which truly, I think it has to be a pretty legitimate path for people who retire from pro sports nowadays, right? Like I would trust in someone who went through that exact same thing themselves over someone who, like, you know, can promise like an 8% return on stuff, but might be like predatory, like taking money from you.
Yeah, on its head, it sounds like a great idea until we come to the final scene of the show. The Rock's going to see a movie with the woman who's just credited as girlfriend.
Hell yeah.
To find out that The Rock
Levinson
has insufficient funds.
Levinson took the Bechdel test and flushed it right down the toilet.
Yeah, one of the things about this pilot is, you know, I would love to talk about what our thoughts are on it as a whole, because that's it. That's how the pilot ends. There's no gigantic cliffhanger. There's no idea of, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? What are the hijinks or anything like that? We're just left with, if they said this is one episode of a series of episodes of The Rock just playing different characters, and we're calling this one Spencer Strassmore, I would have been like, oh, cool. We've ended the story. We know the cycle of this retired player. But that's it.
It ends with him trying to get money out of an ATM and having insufficient funds and be like, well, time to go see the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, I think The Rock, I think where we left off really is that we're establishing The Rock as Spencer Strassmore. We're establishing Spencer as the person who's going to do whatever it takes to try to make his clients happy. Unfortunately, leaving Ricky Jarrett, who just promised him all of his money for the new Dolphins contract, you know, basically on hold, just like accidentally hung up on him. But I think what this establishes is like, okay, I'm going to be the little bit of good in this cesspool of like greed and partying and like all these people who want your money. There's like, I think there's maybe one woman in the entire, no, two, because obviously Julia Green. There's two women in the entire pilot that aren't like gold diggers as categorically, and I think that's pretty like telling of his kind of like Robin Hood type journey.
So there is one other woman in this. Annabella Ruiz is the character's name, played by Annabelle Acosta. Stephen Levinson, you're doing great, bud. What I will say, and, you know, let's go into things that we loved, because Annabella Ruiz was a great little character snippet that I loved, because she fully knows that Ricky is in this situation because he cheated on her, and she is his girlfriend, and really gives him literally zero shit whatsoever. He's not in the doghouse. This seems like a thing he does all of the time, and it sort of gave me the pause of like, okay, so we're just cool with this? Like, is this, you know, to bring in the Red Room, is this a Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith situation?
Well, okay, so I think it's a little different in the sense that, and we're gonna talk poly for a second, but I think they're in more of like a cheating is okay agreement, which is very French of them, where you have like you have like your normal like married or person or girlfriend, but you also have a mistress, and it sounds like, I mean, Annabella basically seems like she's down with Ricky cheating on her as long as she stays like in control of the business. She's the E to his Vince, essentially, but they also fuck, which was taken out of the Entourage pilot, unfortunately.
Peter Berg just clearly inspired by French cinema, according to Rich Inman.
What were some of the other things that y'all loved about this pilot?
There's a line when Spencer and Jason are having their lunch meeting, and they're talking about Vernon running through his entire rookie contract already. And Jason implies that one of Vernon's friends is his current financial manager. And Spencer just has this dramatic turn and goes, Fat Reggie from Crenshaw handles his money. Like, every single person on Earth is aware of Fat Reggie from Crenshaw. Like, he's just this known
household
name around town. Household name, Fat Reggie from Crenshaw. I
absolutely loved that line reading. That was my okay, I'm pausing this, I'm putting the remote down. I need a second to just think about how many times The Rock had to read the Fat Reggie from Crenshaw line in the way he did, because how could you read that without laughing?
No, there's no way. Have you seen any Rock action movies? The Rock does not break.
No, the Rock only erodes.
Oh, boo.
What also kills me about that line and that line reading, though, is like a scene before when he's talking with Ricky and he's having the retirement speech. It's like the most like sincere, I'm gonna dig my heels in and act with a capital A acting ever from The Rock. Like, there's the most like emotion and like pathos. Is that the word I'm using correctly? I don't know. But he's like really leaning into it. And to go from this actually nice snippet of acting work to Fat Reggie from Crenshaw handles his money is just like, oh, nope, there's The Rock we know and love.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those situations. You know, there have been recent stories that have come out about Dwayne Johnson and his involvement of certain studio decisions when it comes to movies that he's in, TV shows that he's in, all that sort of stuff. There are moments in this pilot that you say and you sit down and you're like, oh yeah, this was The Rock trying to really break into being a dramatic actor. 100%. There was no way that he was like, oh, I'm just doing a comedy, it's just Entourage. No, this is dramatic Entourage. This is very sad Entourage. This is realistic Entourage. This is one of those things where it's like, this is The Rock's TV show where he's going to show you he's got many different layers. He is the onion of actors.
It does feel, though, like he's in a different show than everyone else at times. Like, it feels like he thinks he's doing this gritty sports prestige show, and everyone else thinks they're doing sports Entourage when he is doing sports Michael Clayton. The Rock could play Michael Clayton. I don't know if George Clooney could play Spencer Strassmore, despite his football work in the cinema classic Leatherheads.
Oh my gosh.
That is like something that I was thinking the exact same thing when I was watching this. I'm like, okay, The Rock really wants to be that protagonist. He wants to be that guy. And it seems like the director only told everyone else the famous Lupe Fiasco line, we need some more half-naked women up in the pool.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say that in our lifetime, we will see The Rock win an Oscar.
I
Oh,
I
okay.
100% agree with you.
Let's play a game. I know we have a game for later, but I want to play a game. Over or under 10 and a half years. So
Ooh.
by 2032,
They're gonna say 10 and a half Oscars.
by 2032, we see The
He's
Rock
putting up John Williams numbers.
at least being nominated for one supporting actor or like main actor.
Well, he's already got the people's elbow, so it's only he's already gonna have a people's choice.
I'm going to take the over. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 10 and a half years, but I think that when he gets into his older years, we're going to see him play that, like when Stallone came back to do Creed and he got like the Oscar train behind him. I think we're going to see him play a role like that when he gets a little bit further up in age that will get him it. So I'm taking the over on 10 and a half though, Jeff.
Yeah, see, right now The Rock is hot, so he's igneous, but when he shows his layers, he's sedimentary.
All right, so we need to have an old Rock whose knees have given out on him, and then that's when the real acting starts.
That's
Once
right.
you get that first knee replacement.
When he's crunching down on those Percocet, that's when we get the best Rock.
So anything else that y'all loved about this pilot, or were there any things that really caused you pause that maybe we didn't talk about?
I love that Troy Garrity, who plays Jason, is the son of Jane Fonda. That's has nothing to do with the pilot itself. I just love that he's Jane Fonda's kid.
I just love Jane Fonda, so I love that you love that.
Wait, so, okay, so the guy who plays Ricky Jarrett, that is John David Washington is Denzel's
kid.
That's
Yes.
Denzel's son. Okay.
The
Yeah,
son of
this is
famous
his-
actors are in this show.
Yeah,
That's
this is his
unbelievable.
first like real role. He's got like 2 things as a kid where he played like a kid in 2 of his dad's movies, but this is John David Washington's like first actual like breakout role.
Good for him, man. I loved a lot of this pilot, even more so than what we had been when we first watched it for the book club. I was watching it with the intent of, making fun of it. We watched it because we knew it was bad, or we assumed it was going to be bad. It's like, oh, it's The Rock, and then bad acting and titties. So this is like a perfect show for HBO. Watching it again, I actually really liked it. I think there was a lot of like depth of his character. I think there's a lot of depth of how many evils are we going to go into with. For me, it felt very much like, what if we had the movie Concussion but with less doctors?
Bringing it back
Just
to Will
football.
Smith.
Yeah, just no Will Smith, just no doctors. What if we just didn't involve medical professionals at all and talked about how once you start in the NFL, once you make it to that threshold, you have a target on your back. I think that is demonstrated exceptionally well with some extremely Steven Levinson dialogue in there.
Well, Rich, you mentioned that you've enjoyed this show. We look at this pilot. Who is this show for, right? Who are we recommending this show for? As I sit here, one of the things I like doing, right, and is looking at what are the recommended shows. If you like this, what else do you like? The ones that showed up, at least on my screen, were they said Entourage, no surprise.
Sure.
The Shop, as well
Interesting.
as
Surprise.
they
Interesting.
recommended the behind the scenes of Ballers as the other show to watch.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I watched all of the behind the scenes of Ballers before I started watching Ballers, and boy, do they cut a lot of great stuff out.
But who would you guys say that this show is for? How would you try to pitch this show to someone?
This is definitely a show for someone who loves a like a kind of a scathing look into something that people find really cool. Like for what Entourage was, Entourage, I think we talked about this in that podcast episode too, but Entourage basically has almost no critical lens of fame. There's almost no downsides. It's basically like, how fucking sick is this? It's Marky Mark's story. And he's brought his boys with him. This show is all downsides of football. It's going to show some of like the glitz part of it too, but every party, every sexual conquest, every moment where they're sharing drugs or like going on trips or something like that, it all has a negative drawback. And I think this show really goes for like, people who like Wall Street, people who like, this is very much like I fell asleep during Hard Knocks and this is on now so type of show. But I really think it's for people who like that deeper dive.
Ballers is like if you made a TikTok filming an energy drink can with a lens flare on it.
Oh my God.
So my two things about Ballers.
That was so much more brief.
That was beautiful. Ballers is the male version of the TV show Unreal, which if you have not seen goes into the drama of reality TV show on Lifetime. But I would also say Ballers is for people who watch the entirety of preseason football games and just can't get enough football in and really are digging deep on that 5th round pick who may or may not be on the practice squad.
Incredible.
With all that said, let's just go into a summary of what happened with Ballers. Ballers as a show had 47 episodes total. The first episode had 2.16 million viewers. Now, if you want to have some comparison of something else on HBO at that time, 5th season of Game of Thrones was going on at that time, and the worst episode of Game of Thrones, as far as viewership, had 5.4 million viewers.
Holy fuck.
The show, actually, its most successful season, very similar to Entourage, was season 3, where it peaked at 2.85 million viewers, and then it went way down. It did.
What happened, Jeff?
Season 3, 4, 5.
Season 3, 4, and 5, and it was interesting. It wasn't the last episode of the season. It was like the 7th or 6th episode of the season, and then interest really waned. It did receive 1 Emmy nomination. Only a nomination. And
is it for Lil Wayne and Drake?
It was actually, I believe it was for Rob Corddry for supporting actor.
My dog Rob, shout out.
Let's not discredit the creative arts Emmy nominations in like sound editing. There's one cinematography one that the show got. It got a little bit of behind the scenes.
Yeah, okay. They got one for costumes because look how cool those Miami Dolphins jerseys look.
But hold on, great. Rich, you did drop a very important thing. We've touched around it. We've made some jokes. I cannot let us leave this without discussing Right Above It by Lil Wayne and Drake.
I mean,
I never get as hyped in an episode of Ballers as I do after the opening credits are over. I never reach that same peak again. This is one of those shows that I cannot imagine having an original score or an original theme song. Like, it needed this the same way that like The Sopranos wouldn't be The Sopranos without Woke Up This Morning by Alabama 3. Like, it feels so like tied to it. But also, like, I want Lil Wayne to do like a Will Smith rap attempt to like sum up Ballers as well.
Wait, like every episode?
We are sort of skirting around the idea that The Rock is a rapper. He did have a song come out
yes, he did.
In 2022. Should The Rock have done a Will Smith Prince of Bel-Air type rap to start this show?
Yeah, absolutely. Just something with like Lil Wayne in the background where it's like I don't know, like booty in the pants, baby, shake that ass more, harder than a rock. You could call me Spencer Strassmore, and then like Drake's in there.
Max Singer off the dump, the 5 Fingers of Death segment of our podcast.
Oh my goodness. Well, Rich, before we talk about if we would recommend watching this show or we would continue any final thoughts? Any things that you would like to discuss with us?
You know I have something to talk about. We're gonna dive into Rich's quiz segment. Let's see how closely you guys paid attention to this pilot.
Let's go.
Right. Oh no,
All right.
I might get sued.
Welcome to the copyright infringement section. All right. Okay. Jeff Kurbis.
All right.
Maximilian Singer.
Yo.
Nice to be here, Rich.
For the final question of and for all the marbles, how many balls are seen in the Ballers pilot? Is the answer A, 6, B, 9, C, 14, or D, 27?
Why are you making us take the Wonderlic test?
Now, Rich, I would like a definition, please, of what we're considering a ball.
I would say a ball is any spherical object that is used for athletics, sports, or games.
Could you please repeat the answer selections?
Yes. A, 6, B, 9, C, 14, D, 27.
Country of origin on that definition, please. No,
Don't make me play the Jeopardy song again.
I will say that it is 6. We only see 6 balls.
6 balls. 6 balls for Jeff. Max Singer.
God, this feels like a question that like Larry Seifert asked like, Charles Green. Like, Charles Green, on the football field at practice today, how many balls did you see?
It's like the study with the monkey that would go behind the people counting the balls.
But Larry Seifert's definition is much wider. He's just like, how many
I'm
men
going to
were
go
on the
with
field?
C, that we see 14 balls over the course of the Entourage Ballers pilot.
Freudian slip. Ding, 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 ding. We have 14 balls seen in the
wow.
Ballers pilot.
Congrats, Max.
Several footballs, one athletic, like one of those inflatable athletic balls, and then 10 billiard balls.
Oh,
Wow.
that is dirty that you included
Pop,
billiard
pop.
balls. Well,
Rich Inman, quarter pocket.
well, congratulations to Max. We should definitely keep a scoreboard of where we are on Rich's segments. I believe Max and I are tied at 1 each.
Yeah, I think Jeff nailed the question about how many nude scenes the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond has done.
If you have not listened to that episode, please do.
If this is your first time listening to us, there is no nude scene in Everybody Loves Raymond.
Or is there? Please listen to the pod. Please listen to the podcast to find out if Raymond gets naked.
With that said, let's finish this thing up. We are landing this plane, and I'd love to hear, would you guys continue watching this show? Would you binge it? Would it be an occasional watch? Or is this something that, hey, maybe the pilot was just enough?
For me, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take a pass and say the pilot's enough. As we've hit on before, I've been there, done that, gotten the complimentary promotional t-shirt. I'm not getting anything out of this, unfortunately, that makes me want to keep going back for more. So if this is for you, awesome, but I'm going to find something else to watch.
I honestly feel really bad saying this, that now I do really want to watch Ballers again. I really enjoyed the pilot. I'm so sorry. This is like, I was not expecting to like the content of the show this much, and once I started like getting into the characters a bit more and getting into like how Spencer's supposed to be the protagonist and not just view it as sports entourage, I kind of liked it a little bit more. I would watch more.
Jeff, our tiebreaker today?
I will break this tie by saying I never need to watch another episode of Ballers again in my lifetime. Having grown up in South Florida, I have experienced as much of South Florida as I need to. What I will say is...
You're going to watch an episode of Ballers? Watch one.
What I will say,
Beautiful.
if you do want to watch Ballers, you can absolutely find it for now on HBO Max. Who knows if The Rock makes his own streaming network that includes all of his movies and TV shows. Ooh, Rock Plus. But from there, this is also, if you're keeping score at home, the first time we've disagreed and not been unanimous. as far as a show. But
well, thanks for listening to episode 4, our last episode.
yeah, we will no longer be friends with Rich. It is just Max and myself from here on out.
That's okay. I'm gonna be busy watching Ballers. Fuck you guys.
With that, let's make sure as we're signing off, where can we find you, gentlemen, if you are not following
watching
us
Ballers
on the podcast? Rich, where can we find you?
Find me on the couch. You can find me at Damn That's Rich on Instagram. You can find Max and myself at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok. Please watch our comedy videos.
If you want more from myself, you can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And if you want to find me, you can find me on all things social media at RunJeffRun. You can find our podcast at TV Pilots License. We are on all major podcasting networks. We also have a YouTube channel. And I'm going to sign off by giving a shout out to South Florida, my home, the 561, representing all day. Have a wonderful day. It's been wonderful traveling with you. And we look forward to seeing you in the bright skies someday soon.
Dale.
Dale.
No, we did not plan that. We did not plan that.